What if your brain was already changing and you had no idea? A landmark study published in Nature Medicine led by researchers at Johns Hopkins and NYU followed over 15,000 Americans for decades. The lifetime risk of developing dementia after age 55 is not 15 or 20% like we used to think, it's 42%, nearly half of us. For women, that number climbs to 48%. But here's the part that should stop you in your tracks. The earliest signs of dementia don't start with forgetting your keys. They start in ways that are so subtle, so ordinary, that almost everyone brushes them off as just getting older. Today, I'm walking you through 7 early warning signs that your brain might be in trouble, signs that show up long before a diagnosis. And number 4 on this list? Almost nobody connects it to dementia. But new research from USC and Harvard suggests it could be one of the very first red flags. Before we get started, drop your age and where you're watching from in the comments. I read every single one. Let's build this community together. All right, let's get into it. Number 7, your sleep has changed and nobody can explain why. You used to fall asleep within minutes. Now it takes you 30, 40 minutes. Or you fall asleep fine, but wake up at 3 a.m. and just lie there. A 10-year national study from SUNY Upstate Medical University found that people who consistently had trouble falling asleep had a significantly higher risk of developing dementia later on. Not a small increase. A meaningful jump that held up even after accounting for other health conditions. Here's why. The brain uses deep sleep to clear out beta amyloid, the toxic protein that builds up in Alzheimer's disease. When your sleep is disrupted night after night, that cleanup can't happen. The garbage piles up. And a 2025 study published in Neurology found that older women who became increasingly sleepy during the day over a 5-year period had double the risk of developing dementia compared to those who didn't. If your sleep has shifted and no one can figure out why, talk to your doctor. It could be nothing, but it could also be your brain sending you an early message. Number 6, you're losing the thread of conversations. This isn't zoning out during a chat. This is paying attention, trying to follow along, and still losing the plot. Your daughter is telling you about her weekend, and midway through, you can't track what happened. The Alzheimer's Association lists difficulty following conversations as one of the 10 core warning signs. Neuropsychologists at Cleveland Clinic explain this is the brain struggling to hold pieces of information in sequence long enough to make sense of them. People in early stages also start substituting words without realizing it, calling a jacket a shirt, saying that thing on the wall instead of clock. If someone close to you says you've been harder to talk to lately, don't dismiss that. The people around us often notice before we do. Number 5, familiar tasks feel harder than they should. You've made Thanksgiving dinner for 40 years. But this year the rolls are burned, a couple of dishes are missing, and dinner's 2 hours late. You can't explain what went wrong. That's executive function decline, the brain's ability to plan, organize, and juggle multiple things at once. It's one of the first cognitive systems to break down in dementia. It doesn't have to be cooking. Maybe it's balancing your checkbook. Maybe you're standing in the middle of a task and forgetting the next step. The key is the pattern, when familiar routines start requiring more effort than they ever did before. Number 4, you've fallen for a scam or almost did. This is the one that catches everyone off guard. A team at USC led by Dr. Duke Hahn used MRI scans on 97 adults over 50, none with any obvious cognitive decline. They measured the thickness of a brain region called the entorhinal cortex, the first area to thin out in early Alzheimer's. The people more vulnerable to financial scams had thinner entorhinal cortex regions, especially those over 70. A separate study from Rush University followed over 900 older adults for 6 years. Those with low awareness of scam tactics were about twice as likely to develop Alzheimer's disease, even after adjusting for overall cognitive function. Families often report that strange financial decisions were the first thing they noticed, before any memory issues, paying the same bill twice, donating to every caller, missing payments they never would have missed. If you or someone you love has had a brush with a financial scam, don't be embarrassed. But take it seriously. It could be one of the earliest behavioral clues that something is shifting in the brain. And here's an important note. This doesn't mean every person who falls for a scam is developing dementia. Scammers are getting smarter every year. But when it happens to someone who was always sharp with money, that's when the alarm bells should go off. Quick pause. If this is useful, hit that like button. It helps more people see this. Subscribe if you haven't. We put out new videos every week. All right, back to the list. Number 3, your mood has changed and it doesn't feel like you. Depression, anxiety, irritability, apathy. When these changes come out of nowhere and don't match the person you've been your whole life, pay attention. Researchers at Johns Hopkins found that personality changes are among the first symptoms families notice. Someone social suddenly withdraws. Someone easygoing becomes short-tempered. A person who loved gardening just stops caring. This isn't getting grumpy with age. These are reflections of subtle changes in the brain. The frontal lobes, which regulate personality and behavior, can be affected early in certain types of dementia. If your family says you seem different, don't push that aside. Number 2, you're getting lost in places you know well. You've driven to the grocery store 1,000 times, but one day you don't recognize the street, or you're in a parking lot and you can't remember where you parked. Not in a where did I leave it way, in a genuinely disoriented, anxious way. Spatial navigation connects to the hippocampus, one of the first brain areas affected by Alzheimer's. Early damage here doesn't just affect memory, it affects your internal GPS. If this is happening, don't compensate in silence. Don't just avoid certain routes or stop driving at night and pretend everything's fine. This is exactly the kind of sign that warrants a conversation with your doctor. Number 1, you've become less aware of your own changes. This might be the most important one on the entire list. And it's the most paradoxical. One of the hallmark features of early dementia is something called anosognosia. It means a reduced ability to recognize that something is wrong with your own thinking. The very part of your brain that would say something's off is the part that's declining. Alzheimer's Research UK points out that people experiencing early cognitive changes often have less insight into how symptoms are affecting their lives than the people around them. You might feel completely fine while your spouse and your children are noticing real differences. This is why the people closest to you are your best early warning system. If someone who loves you says they've noticed changes, listen. That observation could be the most important medical clue you ever receive. The point of this video is not to scare you, it's to empower you. Early detection changes everything. When dementia is caught early, you have options, treatments that may slow progression, time to plan your finances and your future while you're still in full control. Decisions about your care on your own terms. The old idea that a diagnosis means the end, that's not where we are anymore. People are living full, rich lives after an early diagnosis because they had the information and the time to act. Don't ignore these signs, don't wait for a crisis, and don't be afraid to talk to your doctor. A simple screening conversation could change the course of your life, and if your doctor says everything looks fine, great, then you have peace of mind. That's a win either way. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these 7 signs surprised you the most? Have you noticed any of them in yourself or someone you love? Be honest. Your comment might help someone else recognize what's happening in their own life. Thank you for watching. Share this with someone you care about. I'll see you in the next one.